All right. So it's been a little break, but we're back. Rubitracks After Dark, episode 6. I'm Nick Bailey here with the Trackmaster Scott. What's happening, man?
Not too much, Nick. How are things with you?
Oh, it's good. It's been a crazy couple weeks. Been running all around the continent, putting lots of miles on, and had to revisit my past life a little bit. Got the opportunity to work a little gig at a compressor station in the oil and gas industry. It's something I
Yes.
used to do full time, and had the opportunity to jump in with a new company and kind of help them get started. So I've been away from home, and I know that you and I have been talking lots, but we haven't had an opportunity to jump back on here and record. So glad we could get together.
You betcha. You come home to a little pre-Christmas present.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So in the time that I was gone, the first three sets of mountain tracks to leave the barn up there in PEI landed. Uh,
Yeah,
so right here in northern Nevada. So my warehouse doesn't
nice,
look quite like this, but this is in the same state. A lot of people
nice.
have no idea there's landscapes like this out here. But
Yeah,
yeah. So, anyways, so we got them on the ground. A couple new customers, first time Rubitracks customers in
yeah.
Central California. They got two, and then there was one beautiful shrink wrap pallet with my name on it. So that was quite the
That's right.
sight to see.
Yeah, yeah. California is going to be the epicenter of the mountain tracks this year, I'd say.
Yeah, so far. I mean, especially West Coast, right? You throw Kyle in,
Hmm.
and yeah, we've got a little mountain track clan going here out west.
I don't even know if I'll be able to have my own. I thought I was completely out of the deal there when we sold the sixth set. The sixth set was supposed to be mine unofficially, but now we're going to
Yeah.
build six more. So
Well, there you go. Yeah, that's
keep,
a good problem to have. Yeah,
good
I'm
problem to
glad.
have is right. Yeah.
Yeah, glad people have been responding. We
Yeah.
have had a little bit of snow, but not quite enough. Usually in the areas that are accessible to us. So I just got back from being gone. Been, we've got a couple other projects we'll talk about here tonight that have been taking
Hmm.
some of our time. And a clue is sitting right behind you there.
Yeah. What do you think of that?
Yeah, so we've been playing with the golf carts a little bit the last few
Yeah,
weeks.
absolutely. Nick, I never paid any attention to these things, honestly, until you kind of brought it up there a couple months ago. They're massive. Like this thing behind me is as big. It's got a longer wheelbase than my Jeep does.
Right.
Um, and it's probably two-thirds as heavy. All the creature comforts, like I didn't go through it. I don't own it, but I mean, I sat inside it, and it's power windows and a UTV is pretty plush.
Sure. Yeah. So is that one of the models that has like all the climate control, heat and AC?
Like I said, I didn't poke my fingers at it, but I by the looks of it, I'd say it's got everything it could probably have.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, they're
it's
sure
a
impressive. So that one's it looks like a liter and a half. They've the
1.5 liter. Yeah.
Yeah, the engines are getting so big that I think that model moved away from a rubber CVT belt. So they have one of the composite and steel belts
That's
in
what it
that thing.
says. Yeah, there's a sticker on the side of it called a steel drive, I believe,
Yeah.
steel drive transmission or something like that.
So it's comparable to what, because you've heard, I'm sure, over the years that auto manufacturers have started
Yeah.
offering CVT transmissions. Like there's a few Nissans and I don't know
Hmm.
some other cars. So it's a similar system to what those guys are using, getting the benefits of a CVT but without the rubber belt, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So the duration, like the longevity of the CVT transmission would be, I'm not going to say infinite, but be considerably longer than a rubber belt, right?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Especially when the weights and the loads go up, and you've got at the end of the day, between all the traction on the ground and then however big and
Hmm.
powerful you make that engine,
That's right.
yeah, good to have a solid link in there. So,
Yeah.
well, very cool. Yeah. So, part of our adventure into the UTV side of things, we had an opportunity to kind of start a pilot program with a big
Hmm.
ski area that's out here near me. It's something that we're right in the middle of right now. So we got together with them. We came up with a proposal. Basically, we are going to demo a set of lake tracks on a Can-Am, basically a comparable machine to what you have behind you, right?
Hmm.
A Can-Am crew cab Defender. Um,
Right.
yeah, so this particular ski resort has a big fleet of track side by sides. But like you and I know, but maybe most of the viewers don't. In general, the UTV, ATV track systems that are out there, they're designed with the recreationalist in mind. And
Yeah.
as these sides continue to get bigger, more powerful, heavier, they start putting some strain on those things.
Hmm.
So when you've got multiple plastic components and thin wall, tubing, um, you just wind up with something that in the industrial world or for commercial use is not very durable.
Right.
So we thought it might be a cool idea to set them up with a set, do a little demo for the season, and see how they pan out. So
Hmm.
by the time we do our next episode, we'll have that machine together and be able to report back on some of their findings early on.
That's cool, Nick. I was thinking of that today, like what you're saying about, they're not really up to the task anymore with the weight and power of some of these machines. And, the reason we never addressed it before is we couldn't possibly build something as light as what was already available on the market. Like I call it like cheaply built, but it's cheap in both ways. Like it's such a huge market, and to be competitive, all the manufacturers had to make it affordable, right? But now this machine behind me, I mean, like this is getting up into passenger car territory. This is not your dad's four wheeler anymore, right? So
Absolutely.
so what now? If you got a machine this big, do you really want tracks made out of muffler pipe on it? Like, so what if the tracks weigh 50 pounds or 75 pounds a corner more? You're going to put five of your buddies in this thing, go hunting. Guaranteed each one of your buddies is going to average 200 pounds, but you're worried about 40 bucks or 40 pounds per corner. It's foolish.
Sure.
Trade the 40 pounds for durability, in my opinion, but I think it's going to be a perfect fit for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I, with my history, maybe some of the viewers don't. I've been running tracked ATV conversion kits for probably 10 or 12 years all over
Mm-hmm.
the West. From the time I lived in Colorado, and we would run in Wyoming and Montana, and then out this way, California, Sierra Nevada. So they've always served me really well, but I'm not using them on a side by side.
Yeah.
And if you across the manufacturers, basically they're the same. Any of the UTV models may have like a little more robust bearing versus a bushing,
Mm-hmm.
maybe slightly different bogey wheel arrangement or a slightly longer track, but ultimately the end product is about the same. And you can go from an ATV like I'm running, that only holds one person, to a side by side that already weighs three times as much. Plus, it'll
Mm-hmm.
seat, like you're saying, three or four more people. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that weight adds up really quick in the UTV world.
Plus all the gear you put in the back, you know what I mean? Like it's like
Absolutely.
you want that big footprint. And like our smallest track, you did a little comparison tonight. Our smallest track's got as big a footprint pretty well as what the biggest industry track has, right? And we
Yeah,
can go big,
absolutely.
we can go bigger. So like if you want to
Sure.
get on top of the snow, it comes down to footprint.
Yeah, yeah. And most of the design, any of anyone that owns a UTV that has been looking at tracks, in general, you have Camzo and Can-Am that are both making like a four-season product,
Mm-hmm.
um, and they sell, come in a multitude of hubs depending on what style you have, and they can adapt them to your machine. In addition, Can-Am has like a severe deep snow only option. That one's full high facts, so it's kind of like a
Mm-hmm.
performance snowmobile track where it
Right.
really has no option of running in anything other than deep snow, soft snow.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, but the basic arrangement of the Rubitracks setup is pretty comparable to all the other four season tracks that are out there. So
Mm-hmm.
you have bogey wheels, but they still have a slide. They still have a high pack style slide underneath the
Right.
runner. I know that you've always, I think, rightly been cautious about advertising these as a four season,
Mm-hmm.
but ultimately that setup is the same as what those other manufacturers are throwing around out there. If you get rocks inside, you get dirt, sand inside, it's going to prematurely wear that Hyfax out. Um, but it is, it's the type of thing where if you're just crossing a road or you've got a little
Mm-hmm.
section of, that you need to get through, um, kind of like snowmobiles do when they're overheating. You could always pack some snow in the chassis there around those
Yeah.
bogey wheels, but help keep everything cool and lubricated.
Yeah. And Nick, one of the reasons now, I'm not sure if you're aware, but like our competitor in this track model would advertise on their website that these tracks can be used in sand and mud and all types of terrain. And like I don't dispute that fact, but the point of these tracks, like they're designed for snow. And if you want them to last any length of time, they should be used in snow. So for me to promote them for uses in terrain that I knew was going to be harmful to them would just cheapen the end result. Like people's tracks, like I know where the first set of tracks I built is, and they still look as good as the day they were brand new, right? And they
Sure.
still work as good as the day they were brand new. Like I didn't want those things to be out behind a tree somewhere because some guy tore the piss out of them.
Right.
So we work on the mud side too, I suppose, with the HD tracks. But yeah, that's always been my take on it. Is I think they
Yeah.
should be used for what they were designed for. But I mean, like you said, it's not going to hurt them. Like if you got a little bit of dirt or whatnot, you got to cross or to go from trail to trail, they're not going to just fall to pieces on the side of the road. They're just going to wear a little quicker, and that's just cost of cost of doing business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had that high nose, that custom track kit that I ran
Hmm.
before the mountain here for the past 3 seasons. Um, Wound up selling those to a gentleman that's up in Idaho, and took the photos and I delivered them to him. And when we were moving them from truck to truck, he's like, "Man, are you sure that these the used ones? Because man, these things look good."
Hmm.
And I mean, you've seen the places that I've gone, and I've run mine, in some pretty demanding conditions over the last 3 years, and yeah, they were
Yeah.
immaculate. You know,
Hmm.
you're always going to have a couple little sections of lug that have hit a fence post or a rock or something like that, but
Yeah.
overall, yeah, no thread showing on the belts. The main frame, the runners on both sides were true. I mean, I never even had to do a bogey wheel in all the times I owned
Yeah.
them, so pretty
You and
impressive.
you and Kyle,
Yeah,
the lightest and the heaviest.
right. Oh, yeah, opposite ends. Funny.
Opposite ends. Yeah.
Yeah, well, good deal. So, yeah, so exciting things happening in the UTV world.
Hmm.
Um, and in my warehouse as well with the arrival of the
Yes.
mountain. So by the time we're on here again, we'll have some updates for you from the ski resort with this Can-Am running around. Plus, we'll have the debut of the Snow Runner with its new shoes.
Yes.
I was rolling those mountains around the track. Sorry, around the shop today, the mountain tracks.
Hmm.
Um, and even though they're bigger, the belts are a lot longer, the frames are bigger. We're up to 9 axles on the
9 long.
frame.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, man, they still rolled really nice. I was
Yeah.
still very impressed at how easily, I'm not a small guy, but pretty easy to manipulate, move around. I just set up like an ATV ramp. I can roll them into the back of my truck by myself.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
get out to a trailhead to install, even now with the biggest track that we make, right?
Yeah.
It was, it
They're
was
still
pleasantly,
manageable.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So to be honest, like almost easier than if you just had a giant set of tires that you snow wheeled with. Uh,
Yeah.
they're pretty unwieldy as well.
Yeah. That's true. When do you think you're putting them on?
So right now, I was just listening to one of my weather podcasts before we got on here. They're talking about a pretty good pattern change that'll probably set us up for some more snow. We have a decent base, so you get above about 7,500 feet, and there's a pretty decent base now.
Yeah.
Shoot, in the Central Sierra, Mammoth Mountain, closer to where those other two mountain track guys operate, that resort is 93% of their terrain is open already.
Wow.
Pretty amazing. They've had
That's
65 inches of snowfall this year.
wow. We're seeing that a lot across the country now, across Canada especially. There's been some storms roll through Ontario. Can't remember how much they got, but it was shut down for a couple days there. So it's coming, and we're going to get it this year, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And even here at the beginning, it's been somewhat generous where the West got a pretty good start, and then the pattern kind of changed and the East Coast got in on the party too.
Yeah, yeah,
Upper Midwest, right? They had some record breaking stuff. So anyone
yeah.
watching that might be in that part of the world, this may be a good season to hop on some lake
It,
tracks or cross country tracks. So one of the other items we wanted to talk about as far as this UTV market, over the last couple seasons, now that the company's been growing, we've been selling more tracks. Um, it seems like there is a bit of a secondary market, and that
Hmm.
might be a sweet setup for someone that has a side by side. Right now, there's a new mountain track. So someone that has a Jeep that's been running 136-inch tracks for the past couple of years, they say, "Hey, good time to upgrade to mountains." They put
Hmm.
theirs up for sale on Craigslist or Marketplace. Um, so someone that's out there, as these listings start to pop up. I know you had made a post earlier about doing the adapter kits, and then that enables some of these UTV owners to go out and grab like a U set, right?
And that's the thing, right? So I'm aware that these are, considerably more expensive than probably the most expensive UTV track on the market. And for some guys, that's not going to be a big deal, but for other guys, that's just too much money. But since we've been doing this for like, well, I think we're going into our sixth, I think it's the sixth season. More and more of these are turning up for sale, right? So, and they're
Sure.
not by any means wore out. People have different situations, whether they want to upgrade to the mountains, which was common this year, or just the situation changed and they no longer needed them. They end up on marketplace, and it's an option for a guy to get into a set for his UTV for a few $1,000s under what we would sell them for, and we'll facilitate that by offering an adapter kit for whatever UTV that customer might have. So at least the tracks don't just sit in a barn; they get to be used by somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing, there's lots of people out there that they might have a UTV and a Jeep, and
Yes,
after
and
this,
it
they scoop up the set and you ship them a set of adapters because they got this used set. They tried on the UTV and they're like, "Man, that would be cool, but mine doesn't have a cab, and I could probably get into that cabin if I just threw these on my Jeep." Well,
mhm.
they can come back to you, grab another set of adapters, use that same set of tracks on two vehicles.
And just in fact that happened today with two customers who have a similar machine to what's behind me. So we're going to supply both of those customers with the same adapters as what we have on this machine, and they now have that option. It's kind of nice to be able to offer that. It's not like they owe us anything, but now we've given them an option to make the product they purchased from us years ago more versatile and more useful to them. So it's a win-win for everybody, I think.
Yeah, heck yeah. Well, and you've got your longtime customer up there in Alaska, partially to
Hmm.
thank too, because he was doing the same thing, right? He's been running them on a truck for a while, and then decided
Yeah,
a year or two ago that it was worth playing around with on a Kawasaki KRX, I believe, right?
yeah. And he got along well. He said it was a little bit slow for his liking, but I mean that's what tracks do, right? They slow you down. But
Yeah,
they,
no doubt.
the places that he showed me that he went with it were pretty wild.
Well, and compared to other stuff that's on the market, if you're talking about UTV tracks, these have a larger diameter drive sprocket anyway, so
So they
they're
should
not.
be faster
Yeah, they're not
than
going to
what.
slow down as much as the other guys.
That's right. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, good deal. And I guess lastly, the other thing that this whole new market may bring up is because your side by side typically is a rear engine or mid engine arrangement. Um,
Hmm.
in my experience, they're carrying a little more weight in the back, so that might
Hmm.
be another a good avenue for the hybrid kit where you've got like the Lake 121 out front, a little bit smaller track where you've got a little less weight, and then run like a cross country that 136 in the rear. So would that be an option?
Absolutely. And, I've had this argument with a lot of customers over the years. I've never seen the point of running a longer track on the rear, simply because the front track breaks the trail. The front track's carrying the engine and the rear track is following along. There are very few cases where I could understand why you wanted a longer track. But in this situation, it makes sense because, as you said to me earlier, like these things are somewhat close to what 60-40 weight distribution to the rear. And
Sure.
then you're going to load up the bed of that thing with whatever you're hauling to wherever you're going. It's going to get even heavier on the rear. Um, it makes sense to put a little bit more footprint back there.
Yeah, and if you look at the all the models that are readily available now are in the ATV or UTV world, all have a delta. All their fronts are smaller, all their rears are bigger across
Hmm.
the line, no matter which kit you're riding. So
Yeah.
that some of that flexibility back. if it is a concern. And like you said, especially a crew cab machine with a bed,
Hmm.
you've got a lot of room back there to add some weight. So it would be comforting to know you've got a little more surface area.
That's right.
All right. Well, I think that brings us to the end of episode 6. So
Hmm.
lucky number 7 will be a big one. Can't wait to share some of that stuff with you guys. So stay tuned. Let us know in the comments. You guys have any questions? You have a side by side, you have a Jeep in a side by side, or you're just sitting in the house watching the snowfall. And we field a lot of questions through text and on Facebook and Instagram, but it'd be cool to have the discussion here too. At least everyone would get to benefit from the answers. So
That's
feel
right.
free. Um, yeah, I appreciate it. And we'll be back with you guys soon.